Should you have sex while trying to overcome a porn addiction? You know, this is probably one of the most common questions that I receive from men, or one of the most common struggles and challenges that men that are facing breaking free from a pornography addiction deal with is how do they manage, how do they rewire, reboot, reset their natural sexual desires? You know, I think it starts with us understanding from the beginning that our pornography addiction has nothing to do with our sex drive. Porn addiction, sex addiction, in my opinion, the vast majority of the time are two different things. Now, yes, we do run into cases where men that are struggling with pornography addiction also have a compulsive sex addiction. But for the vast majority of the men that we've worked with, and from my experience in having thousands of conversations with young men all across the world, your pornography addiction has nothing to do with your sexual drive. Now, what it does do is it creates massive negative side effects to your sexual performance. We've talked about sexual and performance EID, porn-induced erectile dysfunction. We talked about delayed gratification, premature ejaculation. All of these negative side effects that show up in the bedroom are rooted in our pornography addiction. But in my opinion, I think we have to begin to separate this conversation. Now, this is a difficult question to answer. Should you have sex while trying to overcome pornography addiction? Because I think every man's journey, every man's recovery is truly unique. Before we dive too deep into the weeds here, let me first make the statement that as a believer, as a man of faith, I do believe that the act of sex should be reserved for the institution of marriage. I think it is God's design for a married couple to have sexual intercourse, and it's not meant to be done outside of the marriage bedroom. Now, whatever you decide to do with your personal life, that is on you. I'm not here to tell you how to live out your intimate relationships. I'm here to provide steps, guides, and some professional insight after working with thousands of men. So that's where I come from a personal standpoint on this topic and on this conversation. But I know many of you out there are engaging in, let's call it maybe premarital sex. Maybe you're engaging in sex before marriage, and you're looking for some answers here. Now, I want to speak to the married men first, because about 60% of the men that we work with do come from committed marriage and committed relationships. And for those of you that are in that position, this conversation needs to be addressed within the home, with your spouse, with your wife. Now, I can tell you from our experience that when we work with married men through our Reboot Your Life program, and they place intention on improving the intimacy within their relationships, 99.99999% of those men talk about the deeper sexual connection, the deeper intimacy that they begin to have with their wives. And I always talk about Clay, who's one of our students back in 2001, maybe late 2002 when we worked with Clay. Clay was a father of two. He's a very successful business owner. He has some other passion projects that he's working on, and he was doing competitions and whatnot. Clay was a father of two when he joined us. And I can remember in the exit interview with Clay, and we shared this on our YouTube channel, Clay told me that he felt like for the first time in his life while going through our program, that he had sex with his wife for the first time. This is a man that obviously had had sex at least twice with his wife because he'd birthed two babies. But what was he saying? What does that mean when a married man, a father of two, says, for the first time in my life, I felt like I had sex with my wife? That means leading up to joining our program, every single time he was having sexual intimacy with his wife, he was thinking about or envisioning something that he had saw on the screen. And he was trying to play that out in reality. And it completely disconnected him from the real spiritual connection, the real intimate connection that two souls, two beings, two humans can create. So for the married men, porn and your use of porn has had a negative impact on the intimacy and connection with you and your wife. While you're working through your recovery, you need to be very intentional about your communication and be very intentional about rebooting, rewiring, and recreating that deep, intimate connection with your wife. And in time, your desires will reset. Your performance will reboot itself. And I believe that if this is something that you went into your marriage with, when you come out on the other side, the two of you will be closer together than you've ever been before. So for the married men out there, we highly encourage you to actively pursue, date, and try to recreate that deep, sexual, intimate connection with your wife. Now, we've also had guys that over the course of the 90-day program decided to go on a complete sexual fast. And once again, this has to be done with the communication with your spouse, with your wife, and with your partner. You both need to understand how you taking time apart, how you taking a break, fasting from sex is going to improve you. And by you improving, you're going to improve the relationship. And then in time, you guys can reintroduce that back into your life. So I think for the married man, it starts with communication. You have to put everything out onto the table with your spouse, and you guys have to be on the same page about this. Terry Crews, famous actor, probably one of the most well-known public figures that has openly talked about his struggles with pornography addiction. He points to the 90-day sexual fast as one of the greatest things that helped him through his recovery. So like I said, this is a multifaceted answer. This is very difficult to give a clear prescription. But for the single men, for the guys that are not in committed relationships, for the guys that are not married and are not going to bed with the same woman every single night, my advice to you is to take this season of your life and conquer and master yourself. I believe this statement to be true that no man should pursue an intimate relationship with a woman until he has fully conquered and mastered his own innate sexual desires. Meaning, if you have trouble and you are struggling to break free from your pornography addiction because you do not possess control over your sexual desires, you have no right going out there and trying to create an intimate relationship with a woman. Take this season of your life, master yourself, go into what some forums will call a monk mode. Lock it in for 30, 60, 90 days, maybe 6 months, maybe even a year, depending on where you are. Focus on your physical health. Build yourself up, become the absolute best possible, strongest version of yourself. Focus on your mental health. Find peace, find joy, find fulfillment outside of pornography. Focus on your emotional resiliency. Learn to control and regulate your thoughts, feelings, and emotions so that things that trigger you don't cause you to spiral out of control. Focus on your finances. Build your career up. Move forward in your business. Launch that business that you've been putting off for the longest time. Make that transition in your career. Seek that promotion. Build high income skills. Build a solid foundation for the life that you are trying to live. Because here's what's going to happen. When you chase becoming the man that God has called you to be and stop trying to play a role in a character to find a woman and bring a woman into her life, by just being yourself, walking in true authenticity as the man that God has called you to be and sharing that human being, sharing that man with the world, the right woman, the right partner, the right spouse will find her way into your life. You know, if we look at Genesis 2 and the story of Adam and Eve, God created Adam first. He gave Adam a job and a mission and a purpose in this world. Go out there and name all the animals and tend to the garden. Protect the animals, take care of the fields. And it wasn't until God saw man operating in his purpose that he then realized man is not good alone. Let me bring him a helpmate. See, as young men out here in the world, sometimes we try to put the cart before the horse. Sometimes we try to find the woman that we're going to build a life with versus building a life and inviting a woman into it. Find your purpose, find your calling, begin to serve the world, beginning to build yourself up physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, spiritually, and then go present that man to the world. But if you're single and struggling with pornography addiction, take this season of your life to build you up, to focus on you. Because like I said, no man should pursue an intimate relationship with a woman until he has fully conquered and mastered his own innate sexual desires. And that starts with getting off of pornography, rebooting, rewiring, and resetting your life, and becoming the man that God has called you to be. Now, guys, if you want some help in doing this, we put together a free training on the 12-step process, our newly revamped 12-step process to help you get porn out of your life completely and become the man that God has called you to be. If you want access to this free training, visit rebuiltrecovery.com/12 steps or click the link down there in the show notes below and we'll give you access to the training right away. Sex before marriage should not be a part of your life. Sex while struggling with pornography addiction for those outside of marriage should not be a part of your life. If you're locked in and you're engaged, communicate with your spouse, communicate with your partner. But at the end of the day, getting off the porn, resetting, rewiring, changing how you see people, changing how you see yourself, learning to control your thoughts, feelings, and emotions will set you up to live a fulfilling, purposeful, and meaningful life. God bless you guys. Coach Frank, the Rebuilt Man. We love you, and we'll see you in the next one.